India's state-run space agency sent a probe to Mars on its very first attempt, spending less money to get there than Hollywood spent making a movie about space. But if you look at this chart tracking the global commercial space economy between 2010 and 2022, you see a completely different reality. The market valuation climbs rapidly to $400 billion, driven heavily by private companies in the US, Europe, and China. And right at the bottom, India's private sector is flatlined at absolutely zero. The cause of that flatline was a line of code in Indian law. Until 2020, any private company trying to build or launch a rocket from Indian soil was committing a crime. The state held an absolute legal monopoly. We spent decades celebrating the technical triumphs of a brilliant state program, yet this success masked the fact that the commercial space sector was locked out by the very government running it. Because of that legal blockade, top-tier Indian engineers had only one option if they wanted to work in the private space industry: pack their bags, fly to California, and build rockets for Elon Musk. Despite those strict legal hurdles, two former scientists from India's space program decided to start a private rocket company called Skyroot in 2018. They had no roadmap, zero initial funding, and no legal permission to actually launch anything. Beyond fighting the local legal system, they were stepping into a ring with a corporate Goliath. SpaceX already controlled the sky with massive proven launch capabilities and a valuation pushing toward $1 trillion. It seemed impossible for a banned, zero-funded startup to disrupt this market until these two engineers identified a specific logistical blind spot in the orbital delivery chain. Check out this map detailing how SpaceX operates its launches. They use a mass launch approach that functions like a mass transit train. They carry multiple payloads at once and drop them all off at the exact same standardized altitude and angle. That generic delivery route creates a severe logistical headache for Earth observation satellites. To accurately track geographic changes, like shrinking forests or shifting floodwaters, a satellite needs to photograph the same target under the exact same solar lighting conditions, day after day. If the shadows change, the data becomes useless. To guarantee consistent lighting, a payload must achieve what's called a sun-synchronous orbit. This requires a razor-thin window of inclination. At an altitude of 800 kilometers, the required angle is exactly 98.7 degrees. Not 95, not 100. Exactly 98.7. When the SpaceX train drops an observation satellite at a generic station, that payload must align itself. It burns through its limited onboard fuel supply just to reach that precise 98.7-degree angle, shortening the time it can spend operating in space. Skyroot saw this fuel waste and built a counter-strategy. Instead of operating a train, they built an Uber for space, a service designed to deliver each specific payload directly to its precise custom orbital address. Getting off the ground is a solved problem. The real friction point for modern commercial clients is achieving pinpoint orbital logistics without sacrificing mission viability. Having the right engineering idea is useless if it's illegal to execute. That barrier vanished in June 2020 when the Indian government broke the state monopoly and officially legalized private space enterprise. This policy shift triggered an immediate windfall. Suddenly, startups like Skyroot were granted heavily subsidized and sometimes free access to the government's $200 million test and launch infrastructure. They didn't have to build a launch pad from scratch. To drive costs down even further, the team used mechanical 3D printers to manufacture their rocket engines and structural components. This bypassed traditional machining methods and sliced manufacturing expenses by over 50%. By stacking government infrastructure subsidies on top of highly cost-effective local engineering talent and modern 3D manufacturing, an idea that was strictly illegal a few years earlier was now operating at half the cost of any global competitor. That specific cost advantage and customized delivery model attracted serious capital. Skyroot scaled rapidly from a modest initial seed check, progressing through major funding rounds until they reached a $1 billion corporate valuation. Look at this area chart plotting the wider national market reaction. Before 2019, private Indian space startups were in the single digits. By 2023, that spiked to over 140 companies, pushing toward a projected $77 billion valuation by the decade's end. The government fueled this momentum by setting up a dedicated 1,000 crore venture capital fund, alongside sweeping tax exemptions that now allow for 100% foreign direct investment into the sector. India's engineering talent had been building up for decades, essentially a massive economic powder keg that ignited the moment the government removed the legal friction. Government policy functions as the ultimate market godfather, capable of unlocking massive scale the second it aligns with private innovation. The nature of the modern space race has evolved. Market supremacy belongs to the companies that can eliminate friction and offer bespoke, precision logistics to their clients. By identifying a razor-thin logistical gap in the sky and aggressively capitalizing on a single legislative shift on the ground, India's private sector has permanently secured its commercial footing among the stars.